waits, and Johnson scores!
Masaba's in the middle. Wednesday here could seal it. Gassama finds Masaba.
It's now Bannon. Bannon with a great ball in. Here's an opportunity. Palmer scores! Liam Palmer has scored for Sheffield Wednesday.
Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Tie-Dye podcast. This is Extra Time. This was going to be our 1 to 24 predictions review episode. However, in true Sheffield Wednesday style, there is never a dull moment, even when there's no matches taking place. And yeah, with everything that's been happening in regards to our current manager, and I use the word current loosely, we could be referring to him as the ex-manager sooner than we think. We've kind of switched it up a little bit, and we're going to be giving our thoughts on the whole Danny Rohl situation at the moment. Obviously, he's come out in the German media and said a few comments. No sooner has the Boeing 747 landed in Germany, it was straight onto a podcast, straight into the German journalist, giving them all the headlines that they wanted, definitely. So yeah, we'll unpack all of that, plus comments from other people as well on social media about the way that Danny has conducted himself on this episode of Extra Time. First of all, Matt, before we drill into more detail, what do you make of this whole situation? Because it just seems to have just spiraled, and if you do use social media as a bit of a barometer, there's a lot of people at the moment that are quite angry right now.
Yeah, what a car crash for everybody involved: fans, players, manager, coaching staff, chairman. The really sad thing is, James, I honestly can't say I'm surprised by any of it, but what an absolute mess this is. And I think, that is a point that we'll come back to over and over again. It is important to stress right at the top of this, there are different types of owners and managers. There are also different types of leaders. And at present, neither owner or manager is acting like a leader. They are both behaving like petulant children, and they're doing it all in public. And as a result, so are fans, because we take our cue from what we see and hear. I understand why it's ending like this, because it always ends like this with this chairman. But ultimately, the buck stops with the owner. He has set it up to be that way by negligence, by distrust, by a desire to be the central focus. So when things go to shit, yes, it is all on you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I can see why some of what looks like the vast majority of fans are angry with the whole situation. But for me, I'd already kind of checked out with Danny since it was revealed that Southampton had come in for him, at the infamous fans forum that we had back in January, and all that happened, and Dejpon had chucked him under the bus a little bit, and then we had all the kind of pre-match and post-match press conferences where Danny were, he didn't explicitly say it, but it was kind of, leaning that way, again, making comments towards Dejpon as well. And at that point, I knew that relationship was never, ever going to last. And we had the whole, we haven't signed anyone in January, they've not spoken for however long. At that point, I knew, I mean, to be fair, I probably knew even at the start of the season that, he's not going to be here that long. The shelf life of managers isn't long at all. And if you're doing well at a side like us, you're going to get, you're going to go on to bigger and better things. And just by looking at what he's done in his short career, the clubs he's been at, yeah, I'm under no illusions that he's going to stay at Sheffield Wednesday, especially when you know how bad it is behind the scenes as well. So, I mean, I suppose I'm surprised the way that he's gone about it. Then, I mean, it's not ideal, is it? But I'm probably going against what the general consensus is at the moment. But I feel like my opinion is based on the fact of how much I dislike Dejpon Chansiri, and I feel like the whole situation, maybe he feels like this is the only way that he can kind of get out of it, because we know as fans how difficult it is to communicate with Dejpon. fans forum, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. He even does that in, again, I reference when I actually sat around a table, he did it then. Like so he's not just doing it to play up to an audience. Does he do that in kind of one-to-one meetings with Danny? I don't know. We have no idea how it all goes. All we can go off is kind of what we see. And I don't know. Maybe he's spoken to Dejpon and told him all the things that he's then come out and said in the media. So it's not I've no idea. I just feel like he must feel like he's backed into a corner. I don't think anyone really wants to do what he's done, but he just wants out, and he feels like this is the best opportunity of doing that.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying, James. I think if you're a player or a manager of another club, and we are Sheffield Wednesday fans, and this isn't happening to us, this is just part of the cause in professional football. Like a come and get me plea. It's not new. It's new to Sheffield Wednesday fans because normally we as fans have already made our mind up on you. You're shit. You've got to go. And usually the manager then gets 2 or 3 extra games to try and salvage it, try and turn it around. But ultimately, we all know the writing's on the wall. This is the first time in a long while, aside from probably Darren Moore under Chansiri, we haven't actually wanted the manager to leave. Maybe Steve Bruce, you could argue as well. Those are the only 3 that you can really argue that we don't want the manager to actually go anywhere. And that we recognise the job that they have done, and we recognise the job that they could do if they stayed. Do I blame him, though? Absolutely not, because we knew this about this manager. We knew this about him when I remember being stood in Birmingham for a afternoon out with a group of mates who I don't really see too much anymore. I think it was Portugal who were playing in the Euros, and Danny's commentating. Like he's in the studio as a pundit. He's a championship manager who's just staved off relegation with Sheffield Wednesday. What's he doing on there? You cannot criticise his agent for putting him in these positions because he is acting on the will of his client. He knows how important this is and how useful the media can be. I would argue the exact same way our chairman does. Our chairman knows who to speak to. Our chairman goes to only a very select few journalists who are, I'm not blaming them at all in any way, shape or form. And I've said that a number of times. They will put out the story that he gives them. There aren't follow-up questions that are published. There aren't further statements. The one who has come out, I suppose, in more wider mainstream stuff is Rob Staten in recent weeks. And he said, we should be able to ask it. But of course, Dejpon's banned him from actually being able to get an audience, or like he's just refuses the interview requests. Like Radio Sheffield are very open about the fact that they've done this. Do I blame Danny? No, I don't blame him for the approach that he's taken. Do I think it's morally the right thing to do? I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah, we're going to come on to that perhaps in a little bit. I do kind of think that, again, as I referenced before, I am looking at it with me yellow and black tinted glasses on, me Chansiri out glasses on, very much in this situation. And I think, again, I think we'll go into this in further detail, but I think it's just because we are so attached to the manager, and I think there's a lot of fans that perhaps did think or did want him just to be the manager for the foreseeable, that actually we can't take it that he actually wants to go somewhere else and things like that, because as you rightly said, it's not happened a lot at all, has it? I mean, not just talking about under Dejpon Chansiri. You go before that, and I think I'm right in saying that Ron Atkinson would be the last before Bruce, who's left and then gone directly to another club, not being sacked. I know Darren Moore wasn't necessarily sacked, mutually terminated, but what I mean is, they've not. Well, yeah. But do you know what I mean? Rather than sacked for poor performances, actually leaving whilst they are doing a good job. I mean, you look at that. We've had. I think I talked it up earlier. I think Ron Atkinson was the 19th manager that we had, and then Danny Rohl's like I think there's 20 managers in between Ron Atkinson and Danny Rohl that have been sacked for poor performances. So we've not, we haven't been in this situation, have we, before, or many times, where we see a manager doing well and then wanting to go to further the career, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, correct, James. You're 100% right. Like, I'd love to sit here and say, no, you're wrong, all the rest of it. No, but you're 100% right. Like, it's
This is why we don't sell players. Like, if we went to sell our best players, like, I know I keep banging on about it, but actually, if it did come to happen, there would be an absolute meltdown across the fan base.
You're right, James. Everybody wants young players in the squad until a young player makes a mistake. Everybody wants to be a stepping stone club and profit off this until it actually comes at your doorstep. Everybody wants to, like, I sit here without the emotion of it, and this is because it is my firm belief. You have to sell Jenny Gassama this window. I think if an offer comes in for Pierce Charles that's above north of 6 million, you have to sell him because of the dire financial situation that is going on off the pitch. Do I want to sell these players? Absolutely not. I want to tie them down to longer term deals, hope they have a good 12, 18 months and then sell them for double that. But we can't pay players' wages. We can't pay staff. We can't pay anybody's wages at the football club. We are 24 hours away from a mispayment. If we have a mispayment now on player wages, we are under a transfer embargo for 3 windows. That is how close it is. We have failed to pay tax bills on time for the past 2 seasons. We have to take money for these people that are there, and it's due to the person at the top because we don't have a director of football. So when you say it's through your yellow and black spectacles, it may well be through your yellow and black spectacles, but it's also the truth.
Yeah. Do you know what, as well, on this situation, again, I keep coming back to it, but this is, we know that Deshpan Chansiri is all these decisions are based on emotion. Yeah. And had there been someone in between him and the manager, they can just kind of, I don't think he'll listen anyway. This is why he hasn't got one. But any other normal club, they're like, wait a minute, no, let's just not quite pull the trigger just yet. Let's not do that. Let's not say that. I think you should say this. There's a kind of a middleman in between. Whereas at the moment, he's just got people that are just agreeing to him and doing stuff through gritted teeth, I guess, because he says so. And I know he has the final say, even if he did have a CEO and a director of football and stuff like that. But there's just someone there to kind of filter out some of the stuff, whereas at the moment it's just 2 people, and also the same the other way. Danny would then be saying stuff, and then again they can kind of filter out some of the other stuff and make sure the right message gets put across. Dave agrees with you. I have no problem with Danny Rohl. Root cause is DC. Samantha's said, we expected Rohl to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, and he did his best, giving little backing and support from the owner of the club. I don't blame him. Daz has said, end of the day, what right person would want to be in a job where you're treated like you are by our owner? Daniel said, what if nobody matches the release clause? What do we do? Then he's contracted to 2027. I'm going to come on to that in a second, so hold that one.
Sorry, James, I'm just going to highlight this quote here from Tony. This is a belter. He brought a lot of positivity back when we were dead and relegated, which is true. I'd love him to stay, but it's not happening. DC just sits on his hands, and Danny is a typical German that has a to-do list on holiday.
Yes, get his towels out on the deck chairs. That's his first
morning. I'll be there.
First job. Go on then. Let's talk about kind of what's going to happen next, or what do we do with him? Because for me, there are 4 different scenarios, and that's when that is the point when my
Deshpan's here.
This is Joe. Anyway, we'll not talk about that. But I think there's 4 different scenarios really, because I feel like the first one is that we get some compensation for him and he goes. I think the second one is that we just mutually terminate his contract and he, he's free to do whatever. We don't get any money for him and he just moves on. The third is that we sack him for whatever reason, and then he gets paid out. As mentioned previous on this pod, I'm not sure whether he gets paid out in a lump sum or whether he just stays on payroll until the end of his contract, up until he gets another job or not. I need clarification on that one.
Treatment, so to speak.
Yeah, and then the kind of fourth scenario, and what a lot of people have been talking about, and it's something that we've seen with another EFL manager, before that last game of the season, is that he gets put on gardening leave until one of the other 3 options happens. Because even if you're on gardening leave, you still either someone has to come in and pay the compensation. You either have to mutually terminate his contract, or you have to sack him, even if he's on gardening leave. And I'd also, again, I'd need clarification on this, but I've read somewhere that you can only put someone on gardening leave for 6 months, but then you need to get a special dispensation to extend that. I don't know who from, but you can't, if he's got 2 years left, my understanding is we can't just put him on gardening leave had let him rot, as I've seen some people say, for the full 2 years. But what do we do with this situation? What do we do with Danny Rohl at the moment?
Apologies, James, because this will be a bit of a rant. So
strap yourself in, folks.
Apologies, all. I might not draw breath here. It is crystal clear to everybody who has read those articles, or if you do speak German, you have listened to the extensive podcast. This manager, under this owner, does not want to be here. If you were left in any doubt, this week should have put that into clear focus for every single person now. That is a hard pill to swallow as a fan, as this is a manager, as you rightly said, James, who has built a very strong bond with the supporters of this football club and clearly some of the players. We've given this manager the most unequivocal backing I can actually ever remember in my Sheffield Wednesday supporting lifetime. However, he has made it abundantly clear this week. He does not want to be here. He no longer wants to be the manager of this football club. I can hazard a guess as to why, and I think it's fairly obvious, but for anybody who doesn't know, here's my 2 cents on it. I'd imagine he was expecting us for us to be able to compete with players who cost a fee. Because I think it was Dom last week who mentioned that the owner has backed him as a manager. You know, he's got an entirely new playing staff and all the rest of it. I would push back on that a little bit. In terms of, I don't think he was expecting us to go and spend Jordan Rhodes money or anything like that. I think he was expecting us to go and compete with those mid-table teams who pay 1 million here, 750 grand here, £2 million there on 6 players, because that's what he said. The chairman came out and said he told me he wanted 6. I gave him 11. Just because it's double doesn't make it better.
Yeah.
That was evident. We were incapable of doing that come the end of August. And that was obviously what played out in January with all of these, 3-4 month deals that we seem to have thrown out to players. He then swallows that as a manager and tries his damnedest to put this squad in a position which forces the chairman's hand coming into the January window, which he did. He got as near as close as you can to forcing a chairman's hand. Then obviously December happens. What has been reported is that at the time, at the start of December, Southampton, a Premier League club, a club he clearly has an affection for, and he says, I want to go. I want to go. I want to test myself at the best level. I have said this since I came in day one. I want to go. Now, the truth, if you believe the rumour, is that Southampton did not value him at £5 million, which was the reported fee. If they did, they would have found a way to make it happen. Look at the state of the Premier League and the finances that go off there. If Southampton really seriously believed this was the right manager, they would have moved heaven and earth to make that happen. The truth is, they don't think he's worth £5 million. They do not think he is worth £5 million. Now, I know you can say, oh, well, they knew they were going down. They know they could probably get him up for half the fee like a year later. I don't care. If they liked him, much like Newcastle did with Steve Bruce, and they knew he was the right person, you find a way to make that work. You sell a player for 10 million quid, giving yourself 5 million's worth of wiggle room, and you do it. But they didn't. They didn't value it him. They value him the same as they valued Russell Martin. That is all we're talking about here. They value him the same level as what they valued Russell Martin, who at the time, when he went to Southampton, was exactly the same as Danny Rohl. A mid-table championship manager who has a brand and a style of football where it might work for them. The rumour has it then that Danny has obviously asked the club to lower his release fee. I would assume that's at his agent's request. I don't think that's from Danny. He then sticks his lip out because the club says no, because to us you are worth 5 million quid, which is the right thing to do. To Sheffield Wednesday, at this point in time, Danny Rohl is worth every single penny of that £5 million to us as a football club. He sticks his lip out, which is understandable. Is it right? No, but those pretending that they would be all high and mighty about it need to get off that mountain, because I understand people feeling strongly about it, and because football is a different business, but underneath it, there are human beings with real emotions, and this is their life and their career, and they will want to take it in particular paths. If we were a well-run club, James, to go back to the original question here, what would you do with Danny Rohl? You take the money, you wave him goodbye, and in comes the next coach on the conveyor belt. Well-run clubs don't hold on to a one-to-way manager. They collect the money and move on because they have already identified their targets. Brentford, Brighton, always thrown up as 2 examples. Warburton, Dean Smith, with Brighton, Potter, De Zerbi. They just have another coach ready to go. We, however, are so poorly mismanaged up top that you have to hold on to him. And I use this not just for the manager. We've got plenty of examples of players of this as well. We have to hold on to them. Knowing you can't give this manager the tools to be successful, and knowing that if you get a replacement in, it's the same deal. You can give even less resources to that manager because you've had to go and pay to get him. You can't even compete with Plymouth and Cardiff, who have been relegated. And you know that the fans are already teetering as it is with you in December. So what is your only out when you now have a manager who is raging, saying statements like, well, you need to ask the chairman? Because that was what was being said the week before the fans forum, wasn't it? It was coming out of the manager's mouth. Radio Sheffield said, so is there any movement? No. Why are you not looking at players? I think you can ask the chairman at the fans forum in a week's time. In post games, he's publicly sticking his lip out and he's putting it firmly at the chairman's door. This is the first time that the chairman has ever had that, because for all of Carvajal's flaws, all of Lahukai's flaws, Bruce's, Darren Moore, they've all peddled this. The chairman's a wonderful man. What a wonderful man he is. Danny just doesn't toe that line. Like he just says, you can read between the lines here, but I'm giving you as much as I can. As a fan base, we then start demanding answers. So what do you do if you're the owner of this shit that's going down? You poison the well. You drip feed information in fans' forums, in interviews that you give, through people that are connected to you, and stories begin to filter out. As we're all fairly aware that the club has more leaks than a sieve. There are many sources within inside the club that are willing to spill and open their mouth because they're as equally unhappy. So what do you do when you've created all of this? You use it to your advantage. The problem is the team is still in with a chance until the end of Easter, basically. And now the majority of the fans have turned. So what do you do? If it's me, James, you have to hold out for every single penny you get. I don't care what Danny says in a German interview. I don't care what fans are saying. I don't care about any of that, because this club is in such financial dire straits because of my mismanagement that I have to get 2.5 million, whether that comes from a tribunal or not. I have to get that 2.5 million pound.
Well, that's the thing, and I got quite a lot. Thanks for that big long.
Sorry,
it's all right, mate. It's no from the heart, very passionate. But this is, I got a lot of pelters by saying that saying that it just shows the total financial mess that we're in that we need this money. Like you said, any other club, like money's coming in all over the show, selling players, selling 5-6 players, even players that don't even, have hardly played any games, young players that can't get into the side, 250 grand there, $500,000 here, there and everywhere. It's happening all over the club, but it isn't with us. That literally, season tickets is like kind of our biggest money spinner, and selling football shirts and ticket sales. That's where we get all our money from. We haven't got big corporate sponsors. I don't see what is it, Mokba? They're not putting in £4.5 million, are they, to be on the front of the shirt? It's like, so obviously that's why. All these mistakes. That's why that's what said to me why what a mess we're in. That he's having to do this. And then I also said that we just need to cut his losses. And again, I got pelters for that, saying why on one hand are you saying that the chairman should sell players, but then on the other hand you're saying we should let the manager go for free. And get no compensation. I just want to back up what I was saying. Really, the reason why I've said that. There's a couple of things. One, the relationship between the manager and the chairman, there isn't one. It's vanished. It's gone. Normally you get this compensation where the manager's happy, he's doing a great job. Other teams think, you know what, I want him because he's doing such a great job at the current club that he's at, which is probably what happened in December, really. Southampton looked and gone, he's doing a fantastic job. We know him from before. We want him as the next manager. Once that kind of relationship breaks down, there's a couple of things happen. First of all, the manager's not happy, and also the next step usually is a sacking. So why would a club pay 5 million, 2.5 million, 3, whatever the figure is? Because you see various different figures depending on where you look. Yeah. Why would they pay that much money when they're thinking this kid's going to get sacked here? And especially with Southampton, where they perhaps know that the manager that they brought in it's probably not going to last anyway, and it's probably just a temporary thing. They can just hold out, and and they're just hoping that that Chansiri does pull the trigger, and then they can swoop in and get someone who's effectively not got a club, and it's they don't have to pay any money. So but I said we're holding off, and we're hoping that a club's going to come in and actually pay the money. Southampton weren't happy to pay it earlier on this season, but we're now hoping for someone else to come in and value Danny Rohl as highly as what we value him as well. So for me, the other thing is as well, nothing's happening at the moment. They're all the players are on holiday. The return list is going to come out in a bit. Who's doing that? Who's making the decisions? I have no idea. I haven't got a clue. If it's the guy that's not going to be here, then Christ Almighty. I mean, it might actually be Edgepond that's calling all the shots, which again is alarming in itself. But we're in a position we haven't been in for a long time, in that we could still we knew what league we were going to be in.
Yep.
And now we've got a manager that's probably not going to be here. We don't know who the next manager. Well, publicly, we don't know who the next manager's going to be. So that's why personally I was like, look, cut your ties, dragging it out for as long as possible. We know how much a poor pre-season affected certain players. If that's kind of a poor pre-season for the whole squad, we already know, and I know some people disagree. I've already come out and said, how do you know next season's going to be poor? It is. We are going to be down there. So why would you making it harder for ourselves for £2.5 million? Sorry, for £2.5 million, which I know it shouldn't be a big amount of money for a football club. £2.5 million shouldn't be a lot. Like they should be other. We should be able to swallow that somewhere else. That's why I'm saying cut the ties and let's just move on. It's a bad situation. Let's try and learn from it. I know he won't, but let's try and learn from the reason why. Why has it all fallen down? Has he overpromised and under-delivered? Obviously, we don't know that. Just wait a couple of months or maybe a couple of weeks after Danny Rohl leaves, and he'll say that he's not going to say anything, and he'll probably come out in a press conference and tell everyone his side of the story anyway. So we probably will find out. But yeah, me personally, I just want to move on from the whole situation. Let's just make sure we know who the next manager is going to be. If it's going to be Pedersen, great. Let's get him through the door, and let's give us a best opportunity of staying in the Championship next season, because it could get really, really bad. I don't want to get in this situation. You imagine, Matt, Danny Rohl just tips up. He's in, snapped in taking pre-season training. Like what? We can't get to that point. We just cannot do it. And I think putting him on gardening leave, we're just delaying the inevitable, because I don't think is someone then going to come in and pay money for someone who's on gardening leave, unless it's already been decided, like, and they're just in negotiation terms. But if they're not, there's literally no point in doing that as far as I'm concerned, because I just think he's just going to end up sacking him at some point.
I'm with you, because what's going to happen to Cifuentes at QPR? Are they all going to shake hands and just decide to carry on? And this is a manager who is given money to spend. I know it's not a lot, but he is given money. He is able to go out, and QPR beat us to a number of players, 2 this season, in terms of got the business done early, got them done, got them in, job done. Yeah, I understand the argument, James, of being like, yeah, I think you've got to cut your losses because, yeah, a well-run club would find that 2.5 million somewhere else. They'd just get Jenny Kasama to sign a new contract. They'd throw so much bloody money at him and actually put in a release clause that says, well, if you go to a Championship club, instead of it being 8 million, we're only going to ask for a 6 million fee. And then on promotion to the Premier League, it's an additional 2.5 million. You'd find it somewhere. But my point is, we don't operate like that. And your point is, we don't operate like that. So £2.5 million to this football club is so crucially important to its survival. It's the difference between paying players and club staff for maybe 2 months rather than it is just kind of being able to get... It's the difference between being able to pay your taxes or not. It's the difference between able to give the fans or your new manager who comes in the door a signing that they actually really desperately want or not.
Daniel hits the nail on the head. He says, say something when our manager's worth more than most of the squad.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, but I think both in the situation of Steve Bruce and Danny Rohl, I do think they are two little anomalies in terms of, because how often have we had that at Sheffield Wednesday? Very, very infrequently. And I would assume that's the case for most football clubs. It's very, very rare. But if you look at this squad, we've just spent an hour and a half diving into the first half of the season and how we were turning water into wine and blah, 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 blah. Let's not kid ourselves here. If it is, say, Henrik Pedersen who gets the job, good luck to him. I hope he really succeeds. We're in for a relegation scrap. There's no two ways about it. We're in for a relegation scrap. And if you're a competent Championship manager, so I've seen a couple of people throwing Russell Martin's name about, like what's his name? Cooper. Steve Cooper? Yeah, Steve Cooper. People like that. They ain't going to come here. Why would you? Like, be completely honest. You're going to sit on your hands until October, take a couple of punditry jobs on the EFL, and then when the first job comes up with a club that's got a budget, you'll take it. You ain't going to come here. Like, there's no way at all.
That's it. I mean, I always think this every summer. Like, why would you come to a club like us? You know, surely you've got other offers elsewhere, which is probably why we ended up with a squad that we've got, really, because they can't get offers elsewhere, or then you have to you then have to offer inflated wages to actually get them to come.
Yep.
Rather than the draw being. I mean, I suppose Danny Rohl helped a little bit. People have said, I want to work for him and stuff like that. But yeah, let's go through the comments. Natalie said DC will be rummaging around the manager junk shop in a hurry if Danny goes at the last minute before the new season starts. Last minute as usual, instead of making a decision and getting it done clean and quick. I just want to stress as well, if it is Southampton that they might be going at, their season has not finished yet.
No.
They've still got another 2 games, I want to say. It's kind of the end of May when the Premier League finishes. So, this we could just be waiting until the end of the Premier League season, which might then I know they are a Championship club now because they have been relegated, but that would then confirm them as being that. It doesn't
officially kick in, does it? It doesn't officially kick in until the league season's over.
So everything could be sorted. I mean, the only thing why perhaps thinking that hasn't happened is the way that Danny's been talking. Kind of a come and get me plea. If it had been sorted, I think his messaging would be different, or he might not actually say anything at all.
Yeah, and that's where I sit with LM. Thank you very much for your comment and saying I've only just joined. I think DC and DR have a gentleman's agreement to put himself in the market and get the fee with Henrik Pedersen as Danny Rohl's replacement. Whilst I don't disagree with the latter bit of that in terms of Henrik Pedersen's placement, I think if this was a manager putting himself in the shop window, he'd just put himself in the shop window. He wouldn't be saying things like, I have made it crystal clear to the club what my demands are. Or like, not demands, because he's not been that blunt, has he? He's been like, I've made it crystal clear how this football club needs to be taken forward. And he's basically near as close as you can come out and said, in its current guise, this is the ceiling for this football club, in my opinion.
Yeah. Enoch Owl said, late to the show, apologies off topic, but it's Kevin Beadle still at the club, or have we got no recruitment team at the moment? Love the show. Cheers for the comments, Enoch. My understanding is that he isn't. I've not had official confirmation of that, but if you look at LinkedIn, and I think Kevin Beadle's LinkedIn is his own. It's not fake like Josh Windas's. He says he refers to Sheffield Wednesday in the past tense, and he's looking for work as well. So read into that what you will, but I've no idea. Let's move on then. Let's talk about this interview that he's done. Then he did an interview with the German media, I think RB Live, I think it was. Yep. And then he also did a podcast as well with Kicker, which we've seen a few stuff with them over the time that Danny Rohl's been here. So first of all, what was your initial reaction then when you saw kind of these comments come out?
Unsurprising, because he's used the media since he's got here to paint himself in a specific light or use it to his advantage. I don't know why anybody is surprised that an unhappy manager is using the media to vent, because where else is he going to do it? The thing that puzzles me most about it, I think, James, and we have talked about it a little bit, is how hurt people have got by this.
Because he just switched. It was like flicking a switch. We've gone from singing Danny Rohl to "You're a snake, get out of our club," literally overnight.
Yeah, in the space of a week. Like, if you look at that picture that was taken on the pitch at Watford and the clips that came out from the end of the Watford game, it was an away end, fully supporting, fully backing the manager. Whether they were thanking him or not, I suppose you'd have to go and ask all 2,500 individuals there. I'm just really amazed at how emotional people have got over this when everybody knew this was coming.
Yeah.
This isn't like news to people. Like, it's not like Danny was leaving that pitch at Watford and giving a press interview where he was saying, do you know what? I'm really looking forward to next season. I can't wait to come back and work with the players. Yes, the squad will change. And then he's got off the plane, hit a time tunnel and gone, do you know what? Fuck it, actually. He's had a couple of beers on the flight home and gone, fuck this. I'm not going back to that. Like, this has been going on and rumbling since Cardiff, pretty much, when he was pretty much relegated. Sorry, not relegated, when it was confirmed that we weren't going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because at that point, he came out after and he said, I'll never forget these players. I'll never forget them. Oh, my God. He's so emotional. And from then, we've had a long old run up to it. Like, before that, you could buy into the rumours, you could believe what you want, but that is the first time that the manager has come out and gone as close to saying, look, I'm off. Look, I'm not going to be here. Sorry, guys. This is as far as I can take it. This is the most that I can do. He's landed in Germany, given 2 interviews to somebody that isn't Radio Sheffield or the club, and everyone's lost their fucking shit about it. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's so unsurprising that this was coming.
Yeah, the other thing as well, which I just want to point out, if you actually read kind of I must admit, the podcast, I've only heard like little bits of it. I don't speak German. I know there's a transcript. I ain't reading, an hour's transcript. Let's put it that way. When you look at kind of the actual written interview that he'd done and the comments on there, let's not forget he's been asked these questions as well.
Yeah.
Like any interview happens, you get asked, the question gets offered up, and then he gives a response to that. So when he's saying, he gets asked bluntly, would you manage in the Bundesliga? Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And then he just answers the question by saying, I would love to manage in the Bundesliga. It would be it's a dream of mine, and things like that. I know he said, I think the comment that people have got quite hurt about is the whole one calling Sheffield Wednesday Sheffield, but also
Daniel.
There we. I'd not seen that, by the way. Then the other one is that where it says that the summer's going to be exciting to see what the summer brings, or words to that effect, and that's something that people they're already there going, that's it. He's wanting out. He's contracted to, he's contracted to Sheffield Wednesday. He shouldn't be saying all these things. I mean, it isn't a great look, is it? If you just look at it from the outside looking in, it's not a great look when a manager of a football club is openly just going out there and offering himself out for any club to come and take him. It just doesn't look great, does it, at all?
No, it's an appalling look, James. I completely agree with you. The way he's going about it, talking like he isn't still employed, is 100% souring it. And I get that. I do get that aspect of it, because it should leave a certain taste in people's mouths. I do fully appreciate that, and I do understand that. But in his mind, he isn't coming back for anything to hear. He's packed up and fucked off post-Watford with zero intention of coming back. You knew that from the press conference that he gave after the Watford game. You knew that from the lead-up and the run-up and all of the stuff that's around it, that every single Sheffield Wednesday fan pretty much has kind of accepted in some iteration, whether you believe everything that comes out or whether you believe like little snippets of it. I think everybody would 100% agree with the fact that the manager is not happy. Like, the manager is not happy. It is, I agree with you, James. It's not a good look at all. It's not. But again, I'd be talking out of both sides of my mouth here if I didn't go back to the top of it and say, I understand why he's doing it. And we have a history and a track record of this man using the media to spin a story in his way.
I've seen some comments, though, saying we've given him his first chance in football. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, but like... He was at Bayern Munich, and he was also in the German national side. All right, he wasn't the man calling the shots. He was the assistant manager. He's won, being at a club, he's won the Champions League with Bayern Munich. Like, I'm not being funny. He's not come from Spennymoor or just, Dog and Duck League or whatever. He's
Medal Premier League, James.
Yeah. He's not come from absolute nowhere. Like he's been at some high profile jobs. You know, he's worked in the Premier League with Southampton, of course. You know, then he's with Hansi Flick, who's now at Barcelona. You know, doing great stuff over there. Like he's been, you know, going toe to toe, or rubbing shoulders with, should I say, with players that are worth a hell of a lot of money. You know, winning titles and things like that. So I feel like to say that we've given him his first job, like I said, as if he's been a PE teacher all his life, is a little bit rich to be fair. You know, and also as well. I know obviously we were talking about Josh Windass a couple of weeks ago, and I was saying that his kind of whole demeanour and stuff is not, you know, it don't. But I can see why people don't like him. And me myself, I don't quite like the way that he comes across, cocky and arrogant. So it's kind of been, you know, Danny Rill's also been like that. But it is no surprise that the two people at the football club that believe in their own ability are getting lambasted by a large section of the fan base. Like, it shouldn't really come as a surprise, really, should it? Because we have not just Sheffield Wednesday fans, but I think just people in general, English people, or people that live in England, kind of struggle to actually kind of accept someone that wants to better themselves or go further. We do really struggle at that, don't we?
Shock. Top professional sports person has an ego. Why are people baffled by this? This is the most, irrespective of apologies to any American listeners, the NFL is not the greatest show on earth. Football is. If you have been to the top of that mountain, which Danny Rohl has, he has coached for a national side who have been world champions and are frequently turn up to major tournaments as one of the best teams in the world. I'd probably believe my own hype as well a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I'd probably back my own ability as well.
Well, that's what Happy Hammers said. I've lost respect for Danny. He started to believe his own hype, and it was like he was doing us a favour. Very sad. I get the chance here thing, but why sign another 3-year contract? 2 years left. Just on that one, yeah, a lot of people have been saying he should sign he signed the contract. He should honour it. What do you think to that one?
If he was shit, would we honour it? It's a two-way street. He's done a job. He's done a brilliant job for the most part for the football club. The club has failed to do their part in this. So I have no problem with him looking for better. Again, if you were because we're talking a manager here, if you were manager of a company that was tanking and it was to do with the board of directors above you and you were just the public face of it, would you expect them to say just because they've signed a contract? And again, I know that there is emotion attached to this because football is an incredibly underneath all of the, like, everybody has the game, but it's the emotion of it. People don't just like watching 22 grown people run around on grass. It's the emotion and the attachment that you feel to it. So I do 100% get that. But this is a two-way street. And it has become a two-way street for years and years and years. Like, especially since real serious money's come into it. Football is not a game based on loyalty at the professional. It is a shark-infested pit. Tank. There we go. It's a shark-infested tank where you have to look out for yourself because, let's say, Danny stays and honours his contract, and by December, we're rock bottom with no points or 7 points. You think we're going to honour the next 2 years of his deal? Of course we're fucking not.
Yeah, I mean, Grant said the fallout from this has been made worse because of the lack of transparency from the club. Until the return list is out / Danny's situation is resolved, people will chill out a bit. Yeah, until the next kind of big revelation comes out, and then we'll all kind of get excited or annoyed or whatever it is again. But just on that, with kind of the lack of transparency, again, when people say that he signed the contract, we're not privy to what is on the contract. No. We're all making it. Nobody's seen it other than, a select few people, I guess. We don't know. Certainly, it's not out in the public domain, so we've no idea what has been agreed or said or anything. We don't know what the promises were. It may well be that he's gone to, obviously by all accounts it was to do with this compensation thing and that needed to be lowered. Maybe Chansiri said maybe Daddy didn't want a 3-year deal. Maybe Danny only wanted one. Maybe Danny didn't want to do that, but he said if you and this is how negotiations work. If you want to have a lower release clause, you need to sign for a longer period. So we've got I'm sure nobody wanted the relationship to break down between the chairman and the manager, but that's how it's happened. It might have been that he's asked for a transfer budget and he said, well, I'll give you one, but again, you have to sign this longer contract in order to do that. Again, I've no idea. I'm just kind of surmising and kind of just offering up another kind of reason or explanation as to why he's done that.
Sorry, James, I've just highlighted this one here from Matt saying, I fear the truth about what actually happened will never come out, as Chansiri seems to enjoy having his former managers remain quiet in the press post his exit. Everyone's happy to sign an NDA there, aren't they?
Leighton Palmer. But we're kind of just it is down to the transparency of the football club. Nothing really comes out, hence why we all start talking about all these things. I also think the contracts in football aren't really worth a great deal.
No,
in the grand scheme of things, they're not. Are they?
It's protection for both.
Yeah, it is, and also as well, we've got to the stage where managers and players, certainly players, hold all the cards. You look at Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's a prime example of that. He's just ran his contract down, and a player that is worth, 80, 90 million pound, maybe even more potentially, has just left for absolutely nothing. And that is totally on the other end of the spectrum, and that just shows you how what players and managers can do. That is a little bit different with managers because there's a select few. There's not as many managers as there are players in the world of football, and certainly not as many opportunities. But yeah, that's just how it is. I mean, yeah, another few comments. I'm just in interest of time as well. I keep seeing this one. Steve Bruce is called a snake. People are now calling Danny Rohl a snake, and also we've also seen since these interviews have come out, a few well-known social media accounts, let's say, in the Wednesday space, have come out and offered their opinions on Danny as a person and actually how he treats people and stuff like that. Obviously, nothing said at all in the public domain. I know there's been a few whispers privately, which I've heard and shared certainly with yourself.
Yeah.
Which I must admit did kind of change my perception on the whole thing, which is probably also why maybe I'm a little bit desensitized to the whole thing, and I'm just think, he was on his way. But one of them read, Danny Rohl is an actor. I know it. So do many others. He's been protected because Wednesday looked to be doing okay, but this has allowed him to treat people with absolute disrespect for months, and it carries on. For me, a couple of things. You just carry on from there. But these people knew these things months ago, but for whatever reason, they've not shared that until now. Kind of until the fans have turned. I suppose it's a safe space, because I guess if they'd have shared this stuff back in January, they'd have just got shot down and said it's not true. But yeah, it's funny how it all kind of comes out now, isn't it, really, when you look at it?
And I get people being disappointed, but he's given us 18, 19 months of great service on the football pitch, because that is his job, irrespective of how he is as a person. I know there's a lot of conversation surrounding Ferguson, Guardiola and Mourinho in the chat from a few people here. Do you think they're nice people? No. I think they do what is needed to get the best out of those 11 players who go onto the football pitch on a Saturday or Tuesday night to try and get a result. In his first season, he had an impossible job and he managed to sort it. Second season, he took us to a comfortable mid-table top half. I know it's top half. You just don't have to scroll, do you? But he's taken us to a comfortable mid-table finish. He has had enough and doesn't want to be here anymore. Fine, collect the money, move on, as we're not going to be able to convince him to stay. We all know why he won't stay. It's the shit off the pitch, obviously, that we've spoken about. So people who are offering that argument that he's a snake and he's this, please turn it in, because people are using this argument that you can dislike the chairman and you can dislike Danny. It's the two aren't mutually exclusive. Okay, just pose this for a second. What's the alternative if you're not acting like Danny? End up like Darren Moore, booted out of a job. End up like Carvajal, booted out of a job. The reason I don't bracket him the same as Steve Bruce is because Bruce left on the eve of a new season. What was it, a day before or 2 days before or some shit like that, after 6 or 7 months in charge, where realistically he'd done fuck all. He'd done absolutely nothing. We even gave him a month off where we picked him up off the scrap heap. So they
let him go off to Barbados and watch the cricket whilst he was sorting stuff off, personal stuff and things like that.
And I agree, and 100%, I think it was the right thing to do. But I understand why people refer to that particular manager, and when they go, "Oh no, it's a boyhood club," he uses that at every club he goes into. But Newcastle saw the value. What was the reported fee? £6 million. Newcastle saw £6 million. Yep, we'll pay that. Nobody is willing to take that gamble at this point in time when this rumoured interest was there on Danny. If you like it, I suppose the other thing is Danny has stayed. Irrespective of this, Danny has stayed and he has tried. Has he tried his hardest, or was he as invested as beforehand? No, I don't think so. But he has left this all the way until the end of the season. If you listen to some reports by Steve Bruce just fucked off and said, "Yeah, you two sort it out. I'm not interested." The managers do have one thing in common, though. They have seen the iceberg coming and got out, or attempting to get out at the first opportunity. The iceberg is the man at the top. Both dealt with embargoes, both dealt with financial restrictions, both dealt with missed or late payments on wages, and they've boosted their profile and used it as a stepping stone, which if we were a well-run club, I would have no problem with. And I'm assuming these people who are calling Danny a snake would have no problem with, but we're not. We needed this manager to stay and build for a minimum of 2 years. So the end of next year, because me and you have said it on the pod, haven't we, James? If Danny saw 2 years out and then at the end of that second year went, "Do you know what? It's been great, but I'm going on to something better," everybody would shake his hand. The problem is that was never, ever going to be the case here. Ever going to be the case. The owner has fumbled the bag on this, the best manager that, in my opinion, that he has ever had in his tenure, so hideously that you are in a position now where this manager can't stay for a second longer because you aren't going to be able to meet his needs, and then you've just got somebody who is just desperately unhappy. And what the alternative, say if he stays, James, what do we do? Another 12 months of this?
Yeah. I kind of go back to my earlier comments, and I just, since January, the form hasn't been great at all. There's been reports of kind of unrest in the camp, disagreements, which I know probably happens quite a lot in football anyway, but obviously when things aren't going well, that it gets blown out of proportion. So it's not all, they're not all playing happy families.
No.
There's certain people that have come out. I mean, those people might not be here come the start of the season anyway. Who knows? But it's not great in the camp. If it starts off, what's pre-season going to be like? What's the new season going to be like? It could just be a continuation. We thankfully we started the season kind of how we finished it last time around in a certain respect. Certainly did all right. What if we start next season how we finish this one? It's not going to be great. I mean, the other thing as well, just kind of on his character and stuff, again, touched on it a little bit when we talked about Windass as well, is like in sport or in any walk of life, really, in order to get to the top, you have to be a bit of an arrogant twat. There's no two ways about it. There's probably a select few that aren't, but by and large, when you look at it, you have to have that part in you. I mean, I refer to kind of Formula One is a prime example. Max Verstappen, can't stand the kid. Yeah. But, what is he, 4-time world champion? Yeah. The last 4 years he's won it. I'm not going to get into all that, but he comes across as one arrogant prick. It's never anyone else's fault. It's never his fault. It's always someone else's fault, should I say. And then you've already kind of name-checked him already. The contrast that is Darren Moore. When Darren Moore was here, lovely bloke, fan, and I agree. And I've not spoken to him personally, but people that had met him and spoke to him and dealt with him, couldn't meet a nicer bloke than Darren Moore. He's just got promoted from League 2 to League 1. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to go out on a whim and say I'm not going to see Darren Moore managing in the Premier League ever. That's not going to happen. Whereas, I don't know, Danny Rohl might not ever manage in the Premier League, but he's certainly got a better chance than what Darren Moore has. I'm not saying everyone just needs to turn into being a prick, because I don't
No, I don't.
But when you have to be that type of person. You have to back yourself. You have to believe. People saying he believes his own hype. Like, you have to create the hype as well. Let's to believe it, you have to create it, and he's certainly done that. A lot of people are talking about him. We said it when that was the kind of thing when we were playing them down the road. They were all singing about Chris Wilder. Like, everyone else does all the singing for Danny Rohl. All the other fans of other clubs. I don't see anyone. Nobody was. I think that's kind of why this is going off on a total tangent. This is kind of why Wilder went off the way that he did, because he was like second, third in the league. Nobody's talking about him, but yet everyone's talking about the manager that's 15th. Do you know what I mean? There's like levels there.
But I think it was Chef Cam who said it yesterday on his video surrounding the manager situation. How many apologies, James, because I'm sure your manager's lovely, and I'm sure my current employer is lovely. How many managers or gaffers do you know in work that people don't go, he's a bit of a wanker, him, innit? Like, I don't know many. Like, unless you are a small business owner, which, at that point you can chat to Dejpon. But that is just the nature of the job. And as you rightly say, it led to an LMA Manager of the Year, as we were told, launching into a 27-minute rant about historical stuff and blah, blah, blah. But at the core of this was not just, number one, how much this football club has got under his skin. Bear in mind, they were in the top 2 at that point in the league. It was also how much this manager's bothered him. How much of a buzz has been created surrounding this manager. And again, if you look around the EFL, every single pundit is not wrong. Every single pundit or commentator around the EFL all recognises that this manager is very good at what he does. And you can be, I mean this nicely, would we all do it? I don't know, I suppose it depends on your own individual character. But if you've got a resume and a CV like Danny has over the past 18, 19 months here, you can be a bit of an arrogant bastard, because you have been doing an exceptional job, because it's not just all mouth. You are actually backing it up with what is happening, the product that is being put out on the pitch week in, week out.
And it's hard to do as well. It's hard to big yourself up just on a personal level. It's hard to do that because, you build yourself up, and one, people are there to shoot at you, or you're there to be shot at, and two, you're building yourself up to fail in some regards, and people hate failure. It's quite embarrassing if and everyone always remembers that person that's Billy Big Bollocks, whereas it's easier just to kind of go under the radar. But actually, you're not putting yourself out there. You're not going to get those opportunities. And do you know what? The other thing as well is, also, I don't really care what happens to Danny Rohl after. I really don't care. Like, I don't care if he goes to be Bayern Munich manager and win the Bundesliga, goes to Man United. I don't even care if he ends up at Chorley. Or I really haven't got a. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. He will leave Sheffield Wednesday and we'll look back on his time at Wednesday, hopefully quite fondly. He'll be the manager that saved us. He'll be the one that had the biggest potential, the one that we let go. But he'll just be, just be the same as all the other managers that we've had. Just like, we'll perhaps just talk about. Yeah, we'll just talk about him like we talk about Darren Moore, and I talk about, saying, if we'd have kept him, we'd have, we might have had a better season, where, 24 months ago. But, that's all that's going to happen. And we just need to, personally, I think we just need to move on. Like, let's not get we've obviously got attached to him, and it was great whilst it happened. I do hold on to that. Right manager, wrong time. I really, really do. We needed to be in a better situation before we brought him in. It's great that he's been given that opportunity, but let's just move on a little bit. I'm just going to read another comment out from Matt. The best example really is Mourinho. Started as an assistant with Bobby Robson at Porto and Barca. Used each club as a stepping stone. Became utterly convinced in himself as the special one. Wednesday could well turn out to be one of the stepping stones on Rohl's own journey, akin to Mourinho's. Definitely. Mark said, right manager, wrong chairman. Yeah, agree. Definitely agree. And Tony said the same, right manager, wrong owner. Let's wrap things up. Massive thanks to everyone that's listening to this one. I don't normally do this one, public. This is normally just for our Patreon members. If you didn't catch all of this, then patreon.com/WTID pod is where you can go. We do extra time following every single match. It's normally not this long, to be fair. So I just thought, we needed to talk about it because, why not? This, I always get to the summer, Matt, and I'm thinking, fucking hell, what have I got to fill this time with? It's all right, when we got into the playoffs, that kind of drags it out a little bit longer and everything else. I'm like, fucking hell, what we're going to talk about? We're not. I don't feel like we're going to have that problem this season, Matt. Are we, to be fair?
No, I don't think so, James. There isn't. Last summer we did pods on the fucking Euros, and I hate England games. I hate them. Can't stand them. And we were sat here going, "Oh, what a player! Oh, this was amazing. This was this." Here's a little snippet of Sheffield Wednesday related news. I don't think that's going to be the case this summer for everybody. So
yeah, we're gonna have retained lists. We're gonna have who the new manager is going to be. We'll have probably a special when he leaves. We're gonna have there's going to be loads and loads of stuff. Hopefully, we're gonna have one to say that the club's been sold and someone else is coming in. I do want to stress as well. Let's not take the foot off the gas. I did tweet this the other day. Let's not take the foot off the gas. As you know. The root cause of all the problems that we've had. I almost think that Danny Rohl is a bit of a moot subject at the moment because it doesn't matter who the manager's going to be or anything else. There's a common denominator in all of this. He cannot hold a relationship down with anyone. The relationship between the fans and the chairman has broken down. The relationship between the chairman and the manager. You can also add to that all these. The only one is Paxau, who he seems to be able to.
But I'd like somebody who's
with.
giving me a reported $250,000 a year. I'd like somebody like that.
True, yeah, but then all these other people that came in, the advisors he brought in, the board that he brought in. Again, he cannot manage the relationship with anyone. So it's no surprise that this has happened. Darren Moore, again, didn't like him. But anyway, I feel like I've mentioned Darren Moore quite a few times on this pod.
Daz, I genuinely, just to finish on that, James, I'm thrilled for him. I'm delighted for him. I'm convinced you won't find much nicer blokes in football. Really, really genuinely pleased for him. Can't wait to play Port Vale in League One next season. Not next season, season after.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Thank you very much, everyone. It has been a long one. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening, and we'll see you again Wednesday for another debate show. Join us then Wednesday at 8 o'clock.